On paper, Gene Hackman's final days are no longer a mystery. Authorities say they know how he died, they know where he was found, they know what happened inside the house. So why are millions of people convinced investigators found something else beneath it? Not inside the bedroom or inside the study, but beneath the house itself. The question becomes, is there a hidden tunnel beneath the house? Or is it all a ruse?
A cloud of suspicion surrounds the deaths of Oscar-winning actor Gene Hackman and his wife, whose bodies were found in their Santa Fe home.
For months, videos have claimed investigators uncovered a concealed tunnel below Gene Hackman's Santa Fe property. Some describe a hidden storage device and years of private research. Even footage so disturbing it was supposedly removed from the scene before the public ever saw it. It's an extraordinary story, but there's just one problem. None of those details appear in the official investigation, and yet they refuse to disappear. This is the mystery we're investigating. Not whether Gene Hackman died, we know that. Not whether authorities searched the property, they did. The mystery is how an entirely different version of those events became so believable that millions of people now remember it as fact. And why? Because once you start tracing where this story came from, something unexpected happens. The deeper you look, the less this becomes a story about a tunnel. But let's start with what we actually know. On February 26, 2025, deputies arrived at Gene Hackman's secluded home outside Santa Fe after concerns were raised that nobody had heard from the couple for several days. Inside, they found Gene Hackman, his wife Betsy Arakawa, and one of their dogs dead. The scene immediately attracted worldwide attention because there were so many unanswered questions. Why had nobody realized sooner? Why were they found in different parts of the house? How long had they been there? Why were they dead? Was something foul going on? What did Gene Hackman know that they wanted to keep a secret? Medical investigators would eventually answer some of those questions. Arakawa had died first from hantavirus pulmonary syndrome. This was a rare but often fatal disease linked to infected rodent droppings. Hackman survived for several more days before dying from heart disease, with advanced Alzheimer's disease listed as a contributing factor. Authorities also stated they found no evidence of foul play, no matter how suspicious their deaths were. That is the official timeline, and that should have ended the story. But instead, another version began spreading online. One video claimed investigators had searched Hackman's private library more closely than reported. Another suggested they discovered a concealed entrance hidden behind shelving. Soon there were claims of underground chambers, forgotten archives, Cold War documents, and a hidden storage device containing footage the public was never allowed to see. Notice something. Every version adds another layer. A tunnel by itself is interesting. A tunnel with documents is good. A tunnel connected to Cold War history is even better. But a hidden drive confiscated by federal investigators? Now you've got a thriller. It's a remarkably effective piece of storytelling, but the problem is that storytelling isn't evidence. Here's what's interesting. The people making these claims almost never say they have proof. Sources claim, investigators reportedly, it has been suggested, the footage was allegedly. These words quietly move the burden of proof somewhere else. Nobody is saying they saw the tunnel, but they're saying someone else probably did. And after hearing enough versions of the same story, you no longer doubt it. So before we ask whether there was ever a tunnel beneath Gene Hackman's home, we should probably answer a simpler question first. Who was the first person to say there was one, and why? The answer is surprisingly difficult to pin down, not because the source is hidden, but because there doesn't appear to be a single source at all. The tunnel story didn't begin with a police statement. It didn't begin with court documents or a newspaper investigation. It spread the way many internet mysteries do today through dozens of videos repeating the same details until those details began to sound familiar. Psychologists call it the illusory truth effect. The more often people hear the same claim, the more likely they are to remember it as true. The Gene Hackman tunnel story follows that pattern almost perfectly. Why did this particular rumor stick when thousands of others disappear after a few days? Part of the answer lies with Gene Hackman himself, and rightfully so. After retiring from acting in 2004, Hackman lived an unusually private life. He wrote historical novels, spent long hours researching, and rarely appeared in public. He may have been often described as meticulous, the kind of person who preferred original documents over summaries due to the roles he took on and the private life he lived. Someone you could say happily spent weeks chasing a historical detail most people would overlook. Now place that real detail beside another. Hackman's home sat in northern New Mexico. This is less than an hour from Los Alamos, an area where some of the most secretive government projects in American history were carried out. The region contains Cold War history, military research facilities, and decades of classified work. Those facts are real, but they don't establish any connection between Hackman's home and those facilities. Or do they? However, the rumor quietly fills in that gap. Instead of saying, Hackman lived near Los Alamos, it asks, what if the tunnel beneath his home was connected to it? The question sounds like evidence, even though it isn't. Video after video repeats the claim that investigators recovered hidden footage from somewhere beneath the property. Some say it contained years of research. Others describe disturbing recordings or files that were immediately taken by federal agents. But once again, those details don't appear in the official investigation, although it is extremely possible for the government to have removed such details from the public record. Authorities have never announced the discovery of a hidden hard drive beneath the property. They have never described secret footage connected to a concealed underground chamber. Those details exist inside the online story, not inside publicly released investigative records. But it doesn't stop people from believing them, because the story has another advantage. It feels like Gene Hackman. For decades, he played men surrounded by hidden information. Surveillance experts, investigators, men who discovered things powerful people wanted buried. When audiences remember the conversation or enemy of the state, it's surprisingly easy for those fictional roles to blur with the image of the man himself. Without realizing it, people began writing one final role for him, the retired actor who uncovered one last secret. It's a compelling ending, but there's another reason the rumor refuses to disappear. The real case is heartbreaking, but it doesn't offer the kind of ending people expect from a public figure. There's no confrontation, no dramatic revelation, no criminal mastermind, just illness, isolation, and terrible timing. Stories like that often leave people unsatisfied, but conspiracy theories don't. They replace uncertainty with intention. Instead of asking how something tragic happened, they suggest someone knows more than they're saying. That's a far more comfortable story for many people to believe, and yet, the irony is impossible to ignore. The genuine mystery surrounding Gene Hackman's death might just have never hidden beneath the house. How could two people disappear from public view for days before anyone realized something was wrong? How does a rare disease, advanced Alzheimer's, and complete isolation combine to create a tragedy that nobody notices until it's too late? Those are difficult questions to answer. More difficult than a hidden tunnel? I'd leave that for you to answer best, but it gives the mind somewhere else to look. Today, there is still no verified evidence of a tunnel beneath Gene Hackman's home. Yet millions of people remember those details anyway, because the possibility still exists that the FBI had quietly erased these from public view in order to conceal such knowledge. The story has been repeated often enough. The truth to people has become, Gene Hackman's home has a hidden tunnel that the FBI is keeping a secret.